God told me the night I got pregnant that it was that boy I always wanted. Well, now that boy's 2 years old. And let me tell you what God did. My son had two pacifiers in his mouth at 2 years old, and I couldn't get him away from him. It was impairing his speech. He tried to talk with two pacifiers in his mouth, and I couldn't understand what he said, and I couldn't get the pacifiers out of his mouth. And so that bothered me really bad because it was slurring his speech. And so I went to my mother's and I talked to her about it, and she just making a joke out of it and said, well, why don't you wean him with the cows? They wean the cows every year. And I said, oh, really? And she said, yeah. And she just laughed. She thought that was funny. Well, I was having a hard time with it. So I went home that night and I was sitting in my recliner thinking about it. And I said, I can't wean my son with the cows. That's 4 months away. I'll never think about that. So my daughter was sitting there and I was telling her about it. And then I just said, Lord, why can't you help me with this? And I heard a voice. And he said, if you go take that pacifier away from him right now, he'll never need it again. And so I trusted that. I jumped up so fast, it's terrified my daughter. She said, what's wrong, Mom? Where are you going? And I said, I just heard a voice of the Lord tell me if I go take that pacifier away from my son right now, he'll never need it again. And so I ran in there and snatched it out of his mouth, and I shouldn't have did that because it scared him so bad. And he jumped, and I said, oh no. And I was sitting there, God, help me with this one. He never started crying. He just stared at me. And then we stared, and he stared, and I stared, and we just stared for a while. My daughter stood there until she got tired of watching us, and I just kept on because I didn't want to walk off. I was afraid he might cry. But in about, I'd say 5 to 8 minutes, he just laid down and went to sleep right there without a pacifier. And my daughter said, Mom, you can't do this. My bedroom is right next to his, and he's going to wake up, cry all night long, and I'm going to have to listen to it. I said, if the voice of the Lord said do it, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to let the Lord take care of the rest. He never woke up in the night. He never cried. The next morning, I got up, ran in there. I got him out of his bed, and he always turned around and reached for his pacifier. This time, he didn't do that. But I felt so sorry. He said, there twiddling his little fingers like this. And I said, are you hungry? And he said, yes. And I said, what do you want? Do you want to eat an egg or oatmeal? And I said, how about an egg? Because I knew that was his favorite. And he said, yeah. So I went and made him an egg. And at this time, he hadn't asked for his pacifier yet. And so I left him with my daughter. I had to run and get some stuff at the store. And I told her to babysit him. I'll be right back. And so when I got back, she said, Mom, I tried to give Cody that pacifier and he wouldn't take it. I said, he wouldn't? She said, no, he told me no. And I said, really? So I gave him his pacifier and told him to go put it in the trash so he'd know where it went, and so he wouldn't ask for it anymore. He went over there and put it in the trash, and I was so thankful God took that pacifier from my son. But anyway, even the little things God cares about. So if you have a problem with something, just call upon the Lord. He's there. He'll answer you. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. God loves you, and God is real.